So I've never had an 11-inch iPad before that I've kept. I mean, I've had the 10.5-inch iPad Air, and then I had the new iPad, which is also like 10.5 inches or 10.2 inches, whatever it is. But those were just not iPads for me to keep. Today, I'm excited because I actually have the 11-inch iPad Pro, which I again got from Best Buy, and you'll see in a second when I open this up. I maybe need to stop buying these Apple products from Best Buy because some of these boxes are in absolutely terrible condition, but I am really happy to open it and see what it's like. And I'm just so excited because I've never had a tablet in this form factor before, and I'm super interested to try it out with the M2 chip, the new hover feature, and just to see what it's like. So let's just get on with it. I'm so excited. All right, so I apologize. It is storming out there right now. There's a ton of rain and thunder going on, so that might cut into the audio a little bit, but hopefully not too much. First things first, iPad Pro 11-inch in the silver, 128 gigs, 4th gen. This was released in 2022, I think October of last year. So I was looking at the Mac Rumors buying guide. It's been like 260 or something days since its release. Almost a year, but I don't think that these are rumored to be upgraded until next year, and who knows when they'll be upgraded next year. The upgrades right now for next year that are rumored to happen is, I think the big one is just the OLED display. There haven't been a ton of leaks about the new iPads coming up next year, the iPad Pros at least. I think there's been a lot of focus on Apple Vision Pro and WWDC and all that stuff, so I think that's why the rumor cycle has been a little bit quiet for the iPad Pros. But, you know, these upgrades are usually not like huge in recent years or recent generations. In my opinion, at least, the biggest one was probably switching to the M1 chip in the iPad Pros, which even then, like, no one really needs an M1 chip. Most people don't need an M1 chip in an iPad Pro. The A12Z was doing such a good job anyway. And then I did pick up the Magic Keyboard in white from Best Buy as well. Now, the reason why I'm kind of hesitating when I'm saying that is because I don't know if in this form factor I want to use a Magic Keyboard. I already don't use it that much on my 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which I'll bring and show for comparison purposes. Not that it's not a good product. I think the Magic Keyboard is good, but it's not good enough for the money and the features it offers. And I think I'm probably going to talk about that in a separate video about what I think the next version of the Magic Keyboard should be. But it doesn't compel me. When I need a keyboard, I mean, that is the best keyboard to have, and I need a trackpad, that's the best trackpad to have. But how often am I actually using my keyboard? Not a ton. I mean, there's not a lot that I can do better with a keyboard experience on my iPad than I can do on my Mac right now. I've been waiting for years for that to change, and I'm still holding out a little bit of hope that it'll happen at some point, but we're just not there yet still. I've been waiting since 2017. If you go all the way back to my videos in 2017, when the iPad Pro came out, the 10 point something inch, I forget, it was 10.5 inch or something like that. I got that iPad Pro, and it had the first keyboard accessory, I think, for the iPad made by Apple. And I was so excited for it being like my laptop replacement, and we have just, I think, taken a really long time to get there, and we're still, at least for me, a very far a ways away before we get there. But anyway, enough of that babbling. Let's go ahead and open these up because I am really excited to see what these have. So let's start with the iPad Pro. What I was mentioning about the box, I don't know if you can see, I gotta cover that up a little bit, but there's like all this damage and it's like scuffed up, and I had this pickup order, so I didn't really get to choose the box I wanted. And it's not a huge deal, but when you get it from Amazon, you get it from Apple, you know, they're in pristine boxes, and I'm just kind of, you know, I'm kind of a snob, I guess, when it comes to that, so I would have preferred if it was in a little bit better condition, but it's not a huge deal. Rip off the paper in the back here, just like so. Rip off the paper in the back here as well, just like so. And I really hope that I do end up keeping this. I think that it would be a really nice, you know, form factor to have. I really have come to appreciate having a MacBook Air. That smaller, compact form factor, I think, has really been something that I didn't realize I was missing so much. We're gonna drop the box. Here we go. iPad boxes are always the worst to open. There we go. That has opened up. Inside is the iPad, and it is so light, especially compared to 12.9 inch. Holy cow, that is light. And I have the iPad mini there as well, and it doesn't feel that much heavier than the iPad mini, which is great. And I have a couple of sad things to say about the iPad mini, which I probably will save again for another video because I don't want to blow things out of proportion, but I'm kind of hoping that this form factor can replace the iPad mini for me at some point, but I have to test them out and I have to see how they work in my workflow every day and before I make a decision. But this is feeling so good. Like, I am so happy right now with this form factor. This just feels great. Let's open this up. And I just want to briefly mention, some of the reasons why I could never keep the new iPad or the iPad Air is because, I kind of alluded to this before, and if you have seen any of my videos, I guess you kind of know this. Like, I'm really enthusiastic about tech, but, I'm so spoiled, and I'm become kind of a tech snob, I feel like, to a point where there are certain experiences that if they don't have a certain standard of, like, UX or like certain standard list of features, I'm just so used to like experiencing more of like the higher end features on some of the devices that's really hard for me to reach for the lower end products because they're just noticeably worse compared to the other products that I have. So like even the MacBook Air, like that display to me is really bad. Like it looks, it's a fine, like objectively it's a really good display. For me, since I have a MacBook Pro, whenever I switch between the two, and I switch a lot between the two, I look at the MacBook Air screen and I'm just like, oh my god, there's no 120 hertz refresh rate. The brightness is not as good, and I think the PPI is even worse. It just feels like a much cheaper display because it is a cheaper display. It's not as nice, and that makes it a little bit difficult for me to use, but at least for MacBook Air, it's so much more convenient and portable that I still do have a lot of use cases for it. I've run into this problem now with the iPad mini where it is also very portable and nice, but some of the user experience on it that I've just noticed, and it's just become even more apparent to me over the past, year and a half or whatever, how long I've had it. It just, unfortunately, I'm not sure if I can put up with it that much longer because I'm just so used to having a certain experience on a tablet. 120 hertz, the brightness, the clarity and the resolution, the speakers as well. So all those features, I think, and I know this is very pretentious of me to say, and I completely recognize that, but it's just the reality of the fact, and that's why my products that I've been choosing have kind of shifted a little bit. They're all great. All these products are really amazing, and most people don't care. I'm just super into this stuff, and these things matter to me, and so I'm really picky about this kind of thing. So for most people, it's really not a big deal at all. That's why I picked up the iPad Pro as opposed to the iPad Air or just the new iPad itself, which I've used both of those products as well, and I've returned them because they just weren't what were not good enough for what I thought they could be. For my use case at least. This is really gorgeous. So this is in silver, and the logo is actually silver too, which I did not know. I thought it would be black, but this silver logo in the back is extremely gorgeous. Now, the actual color of the silver, I'm not a huge fan of. It reminds me of the iPhone 6 color, especially with this line on top and the design, which I was also not a fan of at all. I know a lot of people love the iPhone 6. I think the iPhone 6 for me was probably one of the worst iPhones ever released. The design was terrible, the box was disgusting, and yeah, it was the only good thing about it from what I remember was that the size was larger than the iPhone 5, but the form factor, the box that it came in, the colors, they were all really, really terrible. I think that was Apple at its worst, in my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but this reminds me a little bit of the iPhone 6 design language in terms of the color and having the band on the top. But it definitely looks better to me. I think I really do enjoy that Apple logo that's silver. That's really cool. Okay, and then the rest of the box, just to show you, is just gonna have, oh my god, they braided, I don't remember if my 12.9 inch had a braided cable, but braided USB-C cable, which is amazing. That's awesome. And then you get the the charging brick as well, which I won't need to take either of those out of the box. And then in here, you're gonna get your literature and your Apple stickers as well. I'm not even gonna bother pulling it out. I think everyone knows what's in there at this point, so I'm gonna put that back. And then I'm gonna put this paper back in here in the box as well, in case I need to sell it or return it or do something along those lines. And I'm going to boot up the iPad right now. Oh my gosh, this form factor is really incredible. And it's boot up in landscape mode, which I don't think I've ever seen happen before. That is awesome. Man, if only they had moved the camera to the landscape orientation instead of the portrait, that would be amazing. In fact, if they move the next one, if they move the camera, that might be reason enough for me to trade in this one for the new one. Because that's such a it's such a huge deal having the camera in landscape orientation. It's just so much better. All right, Magic Keyboard time. Again, a really beautiful product as well, especially in the 11-inch form factor. I think it really stands out compared to the 12.9-inch. But again, I'm not sure if this is something I'm gonna keep or use as on an everyday basis, because part of the appeal is having this thin, light form factor. I have the bulky 12.9-inch form factor with the keyboard already. I don't know if I need two of these, but I thought I'd give it a shot and see what happens. Open this up like so. Open up the keyboard here. All your literature, packets, instructional use is all in there. And I think there is usually something else in here too. Maybe not. I'm just gonna put that back. It's really not that interesting what's in here. So I'm just gonna pack that up and save that box as well. This is the main attraction. And again, it's exactly the same as a 12.9-inch keyboard, but just this form factor is really amazing. I can't wait. I'm so excited to use this and just feel what it's like to have this form factor. It really reminds me of a netbook, like a really aesthetic, super capable netbook, I guess. Wow, this is really cool. Yeah, I'm so excited to try this out. All right, so while I was doing that, the iPad has loaded up, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this up in the meantime. And while I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the iPad mini, the 12.9-inch iPad, just to do a quick comparison. I'll wrap this whole thing up. Okay, so I've got the mini here, which I used to set up the new iPad, and I have the 11-inch here as well. And I'm not gonna really show this on camera because its exposure is automatic and it's not gonna do anything justice, but the immediate thing you notice is the brightness of the two devices, and the iPad Pro, of course, is just so much more vibrant and so much brighter. It doesn't have an OLED display, but it's just so much crisper compared to the Mini, and so it's like night and day to me, looking at both of these. And that's the first thing. Then I've also brought over the 12.9-inch iPad, which I have here with the Magic Keyboard. So you can see the whole package, pretty large, pretty hefty, but it sits on my desk most of the time, and it's used pretty frequently when I get home from work for my studying and my notes. Form factor, again, it is really light for its size, but it's a pretty bulky device. And when I bought this, I was doing a lot of note-taking in lectures and that sort of thing, and it was really useful to have. I don't do that as much as I used to when I was just in lectures all the time, so having that huge canvas is not as necessary for me as it was at the time, or is not as useful for me now as it was at the time. That being said, I still always really appreciate having such a large device. I mean, it's an iPad Pro after all, and it's an incredible device. It doesn't have the M1 chip, and initially it was not able to do Stage Manager. Now it can do Stage Manager, which is something that I do enjoy. I know a lot of people don't really like Stage Manager, and I want to talk about that too in a separate video. But it is very capable, and it does a good job. It doesn't have the hover feature with the Apple Pencil, which this one does. This new iPad that I'm showing you now does have. And let me see if I can show that briefly to you right now. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is connect Apple Pencil to the iPad, which already had an Apple Pencil lying around. I'm gonna have to change, this is the default, layout they have. It's disgusting. I'm gonna have to change all that in a second, but let's connect this and I'll show you the hover feature, and that should be good for now. So Apple Pencil is connected. It's telling me to try all these features. And what this does is if you are able to hover your Apple Pencil without touching the screen over something, it'll show a little hover icon on the screen itself, just so you get a more, precise idea of where you're about to touch before you actually do so. So let me try it here, and that worked. So show the iPad here, and then as you can see, I'm hovering over the camera icon, but I'm not actually touching. Okay, I touched the screen that time, but let's try the App Store. Then I'm getting close to it, and it starts popping up like I'm about to touch it, but I'm not actually touching the screen yet. That's probably one of the worst demonstrations you can have of the hover feature on my end, but I think you get the idea of what that is. And so that's like the newest feature that was announced. It's not a game changer and probably won't affect my workflow at all. But just setting this up, I was just setting up Apple Pay, going through the settings, doing all of that, and such a joy. It's such a joy to use an iPad Pro again. And I'm predicting now, as of now, that I will probably end up retiring the iPad mini to someone else, or selling it, or just keeping it as a spare. But this iPad Pro, oh my gosh, it's crazy expensive compared to the iPad mini, but I think for the experience, really, I'm just getting a lot more out of it. I'm having a really good time right now with it. But I think that's enough about the iPad for now. Just quick comparison of the two. 11-inch iPad Pro, 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So just if you wanted to get a quick comparison of that. But yeah, that's it. I'm so psyched. Maybe I'll make a whole bunch more videos for this, because I can just think of so many more ways that this can be incorporated into my everyday workflow that the mini was just, kind of lacking, unfortunately. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoy your iPad, whichever iPad you might have. But until next time, see you in the next one.